In the mid-14th century, a devastating plague swept through Europe, altering the course of history forever. This is the story of the Black Death and how it reshaped the modern world, leaving a legacy that still influences us today. In the year 1347, a ship arrived in the bustling port of Messina, Sicily, carrying a cargo of dread. On board, sailors were found gravely ill, their bodies covered with black boils that oozed with pus and blood. The ship was a harbinger of a calamity that would soon unfold across the continent. The Black Death, as it would be known, was a pandemic caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, which thrived in fleas that infested rats, common aboard trading vessels. As disease spread rapidly, towns turned into ghostly shells, and the cries of the sick echoed in the streets. The initial signs of the plague struck fear into the hearts of citizens. Panic spread faster than the disease itself, and soon, it would claim millions of lives across Europe. This was the beginning of an era defined by suffering and transformation. As the plague traversed the continent, its spread was bewildering. From Sicily, it traveled to mainland Europe, reaching cities like Florence, Paris, and London with terrifying speed. In just a few years, it claimed the lives of an estimated 25 million people, almost one-third of Europe's population. The absence of modern medicine meant that there were no effective treatments, and doctors often relied on superstition and ineffective remedies. At the time, many believed the plague was a punishment from God, leading to an increase in religious fervor and extreme penance among the faithful. Others turned to debauchery, believing that since life was fleeting, one should indulge in its pleasures before the inevitable end. This crisis of faith and morality would lay the groundwork for profound social and cultural shifts. The human toll of the Black Death was staggering. Entire families were wiped out, and communities were left in despair. The once bustling streets of cities became eerily silent, with the stench of death lingering in the air. The burial grounds overflowed, and mass graves became a grim necessity. An eyewitness account from a chronicler named Giovanni Boccaccio described the scene in Florence, where bodies were abandoned in the streets and the cries of the dying filled the air. People turned against one another, blame spreading like wildfire. Jews faced persecution and violence as they were scapegoated for the plague. The social fabric unraveled, yet in this darkness, a new awareness of human fragility emerged. The Black Death, while devastating, forced society to confront mortality and redefine the value of life. The economic landscape of Europe was forever altered by the Black Death. With such a significant portion of the workforce decimated, labor became scarce. Surviving workers found themselves in a position of power, demanding higher wages and better working conditions. This shift led to the decline of the feudal system, which had dominated medieval society. Landowners, desperate for laborers to tend their fields, were forced to adapt to the new reality. This economic upheaval sowed the seeds for a more modern economy, emphasizing individual rights and economic independence. Towns began to flourish as trade routes reopened and a nascent middle class emerged, setting the stage for the Renaissance. Emerging from the darkness of the plague came a cultural renaissance, a rebirth of art, literature, and philosophy that had been dormant during the Middle Ages. Artists like Giotto and writers such as Chaucer began to explore themes of human experience, mortality, and the beauty of life. The newfound perspectives shaped by the trauma of the Black Death ignited a passion for humanism, emphasizing individual potential and the intrinsic value of each person. This cultural shift would lay the groundwork for the flourishing of art in the following centuries, evidenced by masterpieces that celebrated the human condition, such as Michelangelo's David and Leonardo da Vinci's works. The legacy of the Black Death, paradoxically, was the birth of a new cultural consciousness that prized education, innovation, and the pursuit of knowledge. The Black Death also catalyzed profound changes in religious beliefs and practices. As faith was challenged by the enormity of suffering, many turned away from traditional institutions, questioning the Church's authority. This skepticism paved the way for the Reformation, as figures like Martin Luther began to advocate for a more personal relationship with God, free from the constraints of the established church. The rise of Protestantism and the decline of the Catholic Church's influence signaled a seismic shift in the religious landscape of Europe. People sought spiritual solace not through the clergy, but through personal piety and direct communion with the divine, fundamentally altering the relationship between the individual and faith. The Black Death also left an indelible mark on the field of medicine. With so many deaths, survivors began to question the efficacy of existing medical practices and the knowledge of physicians. The inadequacy of traditional treatments, ranging from bloodletting to magical potions, spurred a rise in scientific inquiry. This led to more systematic approaches to medicine and an increased emphasis on observation and experimentation. The establishment of hospitals and the professionalization of medicine became crucial responses to future health crises. This transformation would eventually lead to the scientific revolution, where the foundations of modern medicine were laid, emphasizing the importance of evidence-based practice. As the plague receded, a significant demographic shift occurred. Urban areas became more attractive to those seeking work and opportunity, leading to a rapid urbanization process. Cities like London, Paris, and Venice began to thrive as centers of trade and commerce. The population dynamics transformed as rural dwellers moved to cities, seeking the promise of a better life. This migration contributed to the growth of urban culture, with an explosion of new ideas, innovations, and social networks. However, this shift also brought challenges such as overcrowding and increased competition for resources. Yet, it was this urban vibrancy that would fuel Europe's future advancements, laying the groundwork for industry and modern society. The aftermath of the Black Death also brought about significant changes in gender roles. With many men dead, women began to take on roles that were traditionally reserved for men, entering the workforce in greater numbers than ever before. They worked as artisans, merchants, and even in positions of authority, challenging long-standing societal norms. This shift not only provided women with newfound economic independence, but also sowed the seeds for future movements advocating for women's rights. The resilience displayed by women during this period would echo through history as they fought for equality in the centuries to come. In the wake of the Black Death, art and literature began to reflect the stark realities of life and death. Writers and artists turned to themes of mortality, human suffering, and the search for meaning in a fragile existence. The literature of the time, including works like the Decameron and the Canterbury Tales, depicted the human condition with raw honesty, exploring the intersection of life, death, and the quest for understanding. Meanwhile, painters captured the turmoil through vivid depictions of the human experience, moving away from the ethereal to embrace the tangible. This period marked a profound shift in cultural expression, one that resonated with the collective trauma of society, shaping the artistic landscape for generations. The Black Death also played a crucial role in the emergence of the modern nation-state. As communities banded together to cope with the devastation, a sense of collective identity began to form. The need for stronger governance and security in the wake of the plague led to the consolidation of power among rulers. Monarchies began to rise, and the concept of nationhood took root, fostering a sense of belonging and loyalty among citizens. This shift towards centralized authority would lay the groundwork for the political landscape of modern Europe, where national identity would come to define societies and shape the future. As we reflect on the legacy of the Black Death, it is clear that this catastrophic event was not just a moment of despair, but a pivotal turning point that reshaped the course of history. The societal transformations it instigated, economic change, cultural renaissance, religious upheaval, and shifts in gender roles, laid the foundation for the modern world. The plague not only taught humanity about the fragility of life, but also the resilience of the human spirit. As we navigate our contemporary challenges, the lessons learned from the Black Death remind us of our shared humanity and the potential for renewal amid adversity. The echoes of this historical tragedy resonate in our lives today, urging us to embrace change and seek understanding. As we conclude our journey through the transformative effects of the Black Death, it is essential to consider its relevance in today's world. Just as the 14th century plague prompted immense societal change, we too face challenges that require resilience and evolution. We invite you to reflect on how history shapes our present and future. How can we learn from the past to create a more equitable, compassionate world? If you've enjoyed this exploration of history, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more insights into the past that continue to influence our lives today.